Okay, so very welcoming to my presentation. I hope I'm audible. This is Tushar Jadhav of final year BTech, minor in robotics. And today my topic of explanation is Denwitt Heidenberg forward kinematics, which is generally a theory or a method which gives us about how to get the final position of the end effector of a robotic arm. So let's just dive into it and see how things happen inside it. The very first thing that I would like to point out is something called as homogeneous transformation matrix, which has two components. One is the rotation matrix and other is the displacement matrix. Now, the function of this homogeneous transformation matrix is that it gives you the total representation of your physical final position of the entire robotic arm mathematically in the form of a matrix. Now, what exactly are these rotation matrix and displacement matrix? In the rotation matrix, as you know, many angles are stored. The angle between two links, like if you have one link here and one link here, the angle between two links uh, is actually gained in that rotation matrix. Now that rotation matrix is generally over fixed frames. So if you can recall that each joint or each part of the robot has a certain frame in the direction of x direction, y direction and z direction, having its own coordinate system. So accordingly, we have a rotation matrix and a displacement. Now displacement matrix is something which is which is generally measured with the help of with respect to the origin, with respect to the zeroth frame of the entire robotic arm. So these are the two basic thing, and this is the main format that how exactly do we find the homogeneous transformation matrix. Let's move. Now Denwitt's Heidenberg method, it generally consists of 4 steps. Number one, we have to first assign the frames according to the 4DH rules. We'll come across the 4DH rules in the coming sessions, and also uh, in this whole entire video, I'm going to explain only the first part of this whole process, because if I go on explaining all the 4 parts, this video will go more higher than the permitted limit. So focusing upon how we can assign the frames to the joints of the robot is the base criteria of this whole presentation. So assigning frames to the according to the 4DH rules. Second is creating the DH parameter table. Third is plug the table values into the homogeneous transformation matrix and then multiply all the matrix. For example, when you want to find out the final position of the whatever transitions, whatever angles that you are going to give in your program, it is going to have an effect over both over all the frames. Like if you say that if the end effector should move from point 1 to point 2, so the all the joints connecting behind it, they all go through a number of transformations. So if you want to find the final position of that robotic arm, so you generally have to multiply all the transformations of all the transformation matrix, and then you get a homogeneous transformation matrix at the end, which gives you the final angles and the final position of the end effector. Okay, so these are the 4 steps that Denwitt-Heisenberg method we all need to follow. Now let us focus upon the how we generalize, how we give frames to the joint. What exactly are the rules? Where exactly should the x-axis go? Where should the y-axis point? And all of this stuff. So here are some preliminary rules which I think we all generally know. So let's just go through this. The first rule is you must have at least one more frame than there are joints. For example, if you have 3 joints, you should have four frames. If you have 4 joints, you should have 5 frames, and one frame must always be attached to the end effector. Okay, so one frame at the end effector and others should be at the joints. Then all axes must be drawn either up, down, right, left, or in the first and third quadrant, like into the page and out of the page, the first and third quadrant. Be sure that in the second and fourth quadrant you can draw it, but it becomes very much tedious because values tend to go in total, like one positive, one negative, one positive, one negative. That becomes very much difficult mathematically. So generally it is into the page, that is in the first quadrant, and out of the page in the fourth quadrant. Now, Denwitt Heidenberg frame rules. These are the 4 rules that will help us to assign the frame that whatever we are going to assign to the joint. Okay. So the first rule is the z-axis must be the axis of revolution or the direction of motion. For example, if you have an axis like this, and if the joint is rotating, is a rotational joint, so your z-axis should be along perpendicular to the direction of revolution. Like it's the whatever revolution that joint is having should rotate along with the z-axis. Okay, and even if it is a prismatic joint moving up and down, so that up and down movement should also be along the z-axis. So your z-axis should must be the axis of revolution or the direction of motion. Then the x-axis must be perpendicular to the z-axis of the frame before it. Now I'm not pointing on the frame of the joint. I'm talking about the x-axis must be perpendicular to the z-axis of the before frame, the frame before the particular joint. Okay, so if you are at the second link, so there might be a frame before it, so your x-axis of the second link should be perpendicular to the z-axis of the first link. So this is the little different kind of rule. You need to account for which frame that you are going to collect. Then the third one, the z-axis must intersect the x-axis of the frame before it. Again, the same rule is that first your x-axis must be perpendicular to the z-axis of the frame before it, and your x-axis must intersect the z-axis of the frame before it. Okay. Next, and the final rule is the y-axis must be drawn so that the whole frame follows the right hand rule. Okay, so whenever your fingers are curling towards yourself, it is the z-axis should be in that direction. Okay. Next, now let us take an example of a articulated, like not an robotic arm, but exactly a construction of 2-3 joints and 2-3 links together, and then apply these frames to those links. So this is an example wherein we have one rotation joint, 2 rotation joint, 1 prismatic joint, and this point is considered as the end effector of the robotic arm. Now let's move forward. So now see, according to the first rule, the z-axis must be the axis of revolution or the direction of motion. So in the first part, your z-axis here, since this part is going to rotate along this plane, the z-axis is perpendicular to that part. So this is the correct notation that we have to give. Similarly, for this joint, since this is going to rotate in an horizontal direction, the z-axis is coming out of the page, which is perpendicular to this part. Again, this is a prismatic joint. So similarly, this joint is going to move forward as well as backward. So therefore, this z-axis is in horizontal position, which is perpendicular to the motion. Okay, which is in the direction of the motion, of that part, and the z-axis z3. Now consider in the end effector. Now here there is nothing mentioned that the end effector is going to move or going to move ahead or back. Is it going to rotate or what? So in such cases, we have the complete freedom and complete liberty to put the z-axis wherever, in whichever direction we want. Okay, so here when you put the z-axis in the similar direction of the previous frame, your mathematics becomes very, very easy. So to minimize the mathematical calculations, we have considered the z-axis, z3 axis of the end effector parallel to the z2 axis. Okay. Now let's go to the second rule. the x-axis must be perpendicular to the z-axis of the frame before it. Okay, now consider this part. Now there is no frame before this part, so therefore the x-axis is perpendicular to the z-axis. Okay, and it can be in the positive direction as well as in the negative direction. Okay, now consider this frame 1. Now frame 1 has a reference of frame 0. Okay, now this x-axis, the x-axis of frame 1 must be perpendicular to the z-axis of the frame before it. The frame before x1 is z0, so this is perpendicular to z0. Okay, now let us consider frame 2. Now the x-axis of frame 2 is perpendicular to z-axis of frame 1. Okay, so this rule is also followed. In the next thing, again, z-axis of z2 is in this direction, and the x3 is perpendicular to z2. So this is also a correct measure that they have taken. Okay, now whenever we consider this perpendicularity and other stuff, we generally tend to look into a two-dimensional figure. But in the three dimension, the principles of intersection change. Okay, now let's say how intersection change. This is a two dimension. Like if we have x-axis, so this axis can be extended in both the direction infinitely long. Okay, now this two lines in two dimension are said to be intersection when they have an intersecting point. Okay, now the same lines, when we consider in three-dimension space, they might look intersecting from one view, but they are not intersecting completely. Okay, they don't have a point of contact with each other. Okay, so let's see the same lines who tend to look intersecting but in three-dimension space. Okay, so here I have an image wherein these two lines look intersecting, and this is the point of intersection. Okay, which we tend to see from above. But when we see from the side view, we see that there is certain offset between these two lines in the three-dimensional space. Okay, so are these lines completely intersecting? I don't think so. These are not completely intersecting lines. But according to our DH method, we want the lines to be completely intersecting. Now, how do we do that? There are two methods of intersecting two lines which are in the 3D space. One, we rotate one of the line in clockwise or anti-clockwise direction such that this point comes and intersect in to the other point. Okay, but the angle between these two should be maintained as 90°. Make a note of that the angle between these two should be always 90°. Now similarly, either we can rotate it, and the second method is we can translate that upper line to the lower line until it meets a certain point of intersection. So these are the two simple rotation kind of two methods that we can make these two lines intersecting. Okay, now let's move on to a 3D figure of whatever link and whatever example that we had taken earlier. Now consider that this is the three-dimensional display of all the example that we have taken. Now here when we extend x2, okay, in both the direction, does it intersect this z3 z1? No. Why? Because these two are in a three-dimensional space. So what exactly do we do in the first method? We rotate that x3 in such a manner that we intersect z1. Okay, so let's rotate that. But when you rotate that x2 in this, your rule number 2 gets violated, and that is your x2 is perpendicular to z1. Okay, so due to this violation, what we do, we translate this axis, this frame, to the previous frame. Okay, now be very sure about this. What I mean by translate is that we draw a perpendicular imaginary line from z1 to z2. Okay, and we translate the frame. In the real life it might look difficult, but here for mathematical calculation, the actual physical frame is attached to this part, but this frame is translated to the first frame just to intersect this x2 with x1. with Z1, I'm sorry, with Z1. Okay, so this is the thing that is very much important in this entire presentation, that we translate that part. Okay, and we get an intersection over there. Okay, so this is the final figure wherein we just have to add the y-axis according to rule number 4. Okay, so z0, x0, y0. Okay, then z1 coming out of the page, x1 and y1, which is perpendicular to both the axes. Okay, and here we have to follow the right hand thumb rule. Okay, point your thumb in the z direction, your fingers in the x direction, and your palm when it moves out, that is the direction of your y. Okay, so that is the right hand thumb rule, and accordingly we get the even the end effector should follow all the 4 rules of DH method. Okay, only then and then we will correctly identify the frames of a particular robotic articulated arm. Okay, so let's clarify this image, and this is the final image that we have got, that is y0, x0, z0. Okay, then we have this and this overlapping frame of x2, which is attached to this frame in physical format in practical, but for satisfying the 4 rules of DH method and for calculations, we have translated that to get it intersected here. Okay, and we have the final end effector frame. Okay, so this is all for the day, and hope you like the video, and thank you so much.